Okay then, for those who missed the lesson earlier in the week about the factions within the Democrat Party, then this is my little overview of that. There is a PowerPoint which I'll send on an email, and I'll just basically go through the PowerPoint. So the first slide was basically in broad areas of agreement within the Democrat Party. Again, you should already know these from the previous work about their policies, but there are different groupings that caucus within the Democrat Party, i.e., politicians who share similar ideas. But Democrats generally agree about these four or five things. They generally have a positive view about the government and about the state. They tend to support big government programs to some extent, certainly more than Republicans do. They do tend to be, on the whole, socially liberal. They support things like gay marriage, women's right to have an abortion. Again, not all of them do. Remember Bart Stupak, who we came across when we did that work on Obamacare, didn't, but generally speaking, they do. Again, many but not all are more supportive of some gun restrictions to some extent. Again, many but not all are supportive of welfare programs, and Democrats are increasingly being labelled by people as being liberal or progressive. Now, within the factions, there are three main factions within the Democrat Party. Towards the left of the party, you've got the progressive left. In the middle, you've got the Democratic Leadership Council, or the New Democrats, as they're sometimes known. And then on the right of the party, you've got the Blue Dog Democrats. So you've got these three different groupings. And again, on the sheet which I sent around for the Republicans earlier on today, it's actually got the what would have been for the Democrats at the end of there. So just fill this in as we go along. So the progressive left, first of all, their general areas, well, views, I suppose, is that they do celebrate the past achievements of the Democrats, like the civil rights movement, like the New Deal under FDR, the Great Society under Lyndon Johnson. These periods when there was reform, which was positive, welfareism was on the increase, etc., etc. They do support extending healthcare coverage, so many of them were not too happy with Obamacare because they felt it didn't go far enough. I'm not saying that they all want to go to the UK NHS model. Many of them don't, but they do want to extend healthcare coverage within the system of the United States. They do support further restrictions on firearms. Again, they don't believe in getting rid of all firearms or being as restrictive as the UK, generally speaking, but they do support, especially in light of like the Sandy Hook shootings and various other things, more kind of restrictions should be put onto firearms. They generally support increasing the minimum wage. Again, the amounts differ. I think Bernie Sanders in 2016 wanted to go to $15. I think it's currently about 8 or 9. Hillary Clinton then also said she wanted it to be increased. They support immigration reform. They want to try and get that sorted. And many on the right say that they want to have some kind of amnesty. They support tax increases for the most wealthy, and the most supported group of LGBTQ rights, women's rights, etc., etc. Regarding the strength they have within the Democrats, well, they are the second largest caucus, so they're the second largest grouping of congressional Democrats identify themselves as being in this group. It's 97 House members and one senator, who's Bernie Sanders, who technically isn't a Democrat in the Senate, but anyway. They're also quite strong because Bernie Sanders in 2016 got 13 million votes, which obviously is a lot. He came second in those primaries in 2016. This year, I'm not sure how many votes he's got yet because they haven't all been finished, but it looks like he's going to come second again, which suggests that amongst Democrat supporters in the country who vote in primaries, he is, or the progressive left are, quite an influential group. And interestingly, Nancy Pelosi back in the early 90s was actually co-founder of this group, and now, of course, she's the Speaker of the House. I don't think she's in this group formally, but perhaps it shows her kind of inclinations. In terms of an example of a politician who doesn't officially caucus with this group, but is often seen as being part of it, is Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. She has been running in the primaries this year and didn't do particularly well. However, when she is actually on the Senate Banking Committee, she was quite fierce about her criticism of the banks during the financial crash and subsequent years. She introduced into Congress the Students' Loans Fairness Act, which had the aim of saying that students could borrow money from the government, but it must be at the same interest rates as the big banks borrow from the government, i.e. less than what it currently is. And she also was very much opposed to Obama's Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, arguing that this trade agreement gave too much power to the corporations at the expense of small companies and individuals. Okay, the second group is the Democratic Leadership Council, or the New Democrats, as they're sometimes known. A bit like New Labour in Britain, it was formed following a long period of being out of power. So, as you know, New Labour in Britain was formed by Tony Blair following 18 years of Conservative rule, and it's all about a root and branch reform with the Labour Party and their ideas. And this was formed as well following Reagan's, Ronald Reagan Republicans kind of presidency, and then George Bush. These were not very good years for the Democrats, and again, this particular group within the Democrat Party wants to always make sure the party's towards the centre. They describe themselves as being moderates, and Bill Clinton was very much associated with forming this group, I suppose, in 1992. Their general ideas are they're responsive. They believe in responsible economics with balanced budgets. So they support welfare and stuff, but they also want to have an eye for the balanced budget and make sure that the government is kind of paying its way. Many in this group, for example, supported George W. Bush's tax cuts in the 2000s. They support Obamacare. Okay, they think it's just about right, I suppose, on the whole. They think that it's provided enough coverage for people, but it hasn't been too expensive either. And so, unlike the progressive left who want to go further, this group kind of think Obamacare is probably about right. It might need some tweaks, but it's generally speaking on the right lines. They do support some more restrictions on guns than Republicans do, although, again, not too many, and then some in this group don't, and are happy with the current situation. They are pro-choice. They support LGBTQ rights, women's right to choose. They do support strong law and order as well. So you do get some in this group that will support the death penalty, for example, still. And they do tend to be fairly hawkish on foreign policy. So they tend to support, use of military abroad in various conflicts. They were supportive, for example, of Obama and airstrikes, so whatever it was in Libya, and its tough use of drones in Afghanistan. Many in this group as well supported George Bush's invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan in the early 2000s. I suppose I would sum this group up as being cautious on economics, so fiscally kind of sensible, if you like, or moderate, but also pretty pragmatic. So if you think about the Clinton, although Clinton was a bit more liberal than his Congress was when he was president, he did, in order to get Republican support for things, often go with Republicans and stuff, like supporting Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was a halfway house about gay rights in the military. He supported various welfare cuts, which the Republicans wanted in the 1990s, in order to get some other bits of his agenda through. So this group are fairly pragmatic in order to try and get the big aims. If you want some examples of their strength, they're the largest caucus within the Democrat Party. They've got 103 House members, and that's actually up by 42 from last time. And the reason for why the numbers have probably gone up is, if you think about it, when there's a midterm election and the Democrats do well, they take seats off Republicans. Well, the fact Republicans won those seats originally suggests that those areas are a little bit more conservative kind of leaning. So your Liberal Democrats often support fairly safe Democrat states or areas or congressional districts, whereas the Democrat Leadership Council and then the Blue Dogs, which we'll come on to next, they tend to represent more conservative districts, areas where if the Democrat Party is doing well, they'll gain these sorts of seats. And then there are also these seats which they tend to lose when the Democrat Party is not doing so well. So the reason why they went up by 42 from last time is because there was a big increase in Democrats in the midterms last time. If the Democrats do well in the 2020 presidential election, they'd like to get a few more from this group because they're going to win some more conservative districts. But if the Democrats do badly, if they win the presidency and then they do badly in 2022, then these are the seats that they'll probably end up losing some of them. Okay, other strengths. Most of the presidential candidates, I would say, who the Democrats have chosen have been fairly moderate, and you probably would say they are from this kind of group. So we mentioned Bill Clinton before, for example. Hillary Clinton is also very much in this type of grouping. Obama as well, I would probably say is, although the next task you're going to do, you're going to look at a load of Obama's policies, and you decide which of his policies would the left, the Democratic Leadership Council have been happy with, which ones would the Blue Dogs have been happy with, and Progressive Left. So you can make your own judgment as to where he is. As it says on the slide, though, Obama did tell the New Democrat coalition, at some meal he went to with them as president, that he was a pro-growth Democrat, whatever that means. Was it? I think it suggested on this grouping. The next slide's got an example I found of someone who's from this group, which is Senator Dianne Feinstein of California. Again, read through the stuff I've put on her, but she's often seen as being dead centre in the party. And although she doesn't formally caucus with this group, I would say that she fairly sums up where most in this group kind of are. Okay. The final group is those which are on the right of the Democrat Party. Some might say them the political centre of the whole American political system. These are the Blue Dogs. They describe themselves as being fiscally conservative and socially progressive. So they believe very much in things like balanced budgets. They believe very much in tight finances. But what differentiates them from Republicans is the fact they are progressive in terms of social issues, things like LGBTQ rights, pro-choice. So most in this group are pro-choice, although not all of them. So our friend Bart Stupak, who we met when we did Obamacare, he wasn't pro-choice. I suspect he's from this group. Most in this group oppose further gun restrictions. Most of them think they're about right. Again, not all of them do. Most in this group opposed Obamacare. So out of the 40-odd Democrats in 2009 who voted against Obamacare, the vast majority were from this group. I think a lot of them did it in the hope it would save their seats in the midterms a year later. And it didn't do, because most of them lost their seats in that midterm. But anyway, most of them did vote against Obamacare. Most in this group supported George Bush's tax cuts in the 2000s, and most in this group are fairly strong on national defence, and they tend to be fairly hawkish, i.e. they're quite happy to use military force abroad for American interests. The strength of this group within the party, well, they were quite influential up until the 2010 midterms. So in Obama's first 2 years, it's a bit like I was saying before about the DNC, because they represent the most conservative districts, which Democrats do tend to pick up. They only attract these areas in very good years. And obviously 2008, when Obama won his election, was a very good year for the Democrats. And so this group were fairly significant, I would say, between 2008 and 2010. They were, though, then decimated in those midterms in 2010, and their numbers today are about 25, which is actually up by 6 from 2 years ago, but is still pretty small. So they have been influential in the past. They were influential regarding Obamacare and making it the way that it is, although since 2010 they've kind of not really had a great deal of influence, I would say. So today there's 25, so again it's not a massive group, and there's one senator who's a member of this group, although some clearly have Blue Dog beliefs. So like Joe Manchin of West Virginia, for example, is not formally in this group, although when we've done that work on him before and watched the videos where he's got guns and stuff in West Virginia, he does seem to share quite a few of these kind of general areas. I've actually put on 2 examples for you on the next slide. One is Senator Kirsten, I'm not sure you say now, is it Sinema of Arizona? She's only a fairly new senator for Arizona. Before that date, she was a member of the House of Representatives. She identifies as being a Blue Dog, and if you read through the stuff about her, you can see some of the areas which she believes in. So, for example, she's one of 3 Democrat senators who supported the Republican tax cuts of Trump to be made permanent. She was voted against the Green New Deal and supported Republicans in that. She does support tough immigration, but on the other hand, no, she does support gay rights. I think she's bisexual herself, and she does support gun restrictions. And the other example put in there was Charlie Crist as well of Florida, and he used to be a Republican who then switched to the Democrats. I put on here in 2012, I'm not quite sure that I've got that year right. He used to support constitutional amendment to define marriage between a man and a woman. He's now changed his mind. He was against any gun restrictions. He's now supports gun restrictions. So it's kind of a bit of a contradiction. He did actually vote in favour of Trump's wall, one of the very few Democrats that did. He does support the death penalty, and he does seem a bit unclear on abortion rights. So between these two, you can get some ideas to what this group of Democrats are like. And then the final bit is, I was just thinking if there was ever a 12 marker on this, and given our current situation, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but anyway, there could be a 12 marker comparing the factions between the Labour and the Democrat Party. You might get questions about similarities or about differences in the factions. So in the next slide, I've basically put on some of my thoughts as to what you can put. So have a read of them through, but for similarities, I've basically got both parties have got factions between the left and the right. So obviously in Labour you've got Momentum versus New Labour, or I think they're called Prosper, whatever they're called these days. And in the Democrats you've obviously got the progressive left versus the moderates and the Blue Dogs. You could say that both parties have got a membership or a core group of supporters who are more radical and more left-wing than most of the elected politicians. So Momentum in the Labour Party is quite popular amongst a large group of the membership, and they're really the ones that made Jeremy Corbyn kind of the leader. And he's obviously, a lot of the MPs in Parliament though are much more right-wing than Jeremy Corbyn. And you could say the same about Bernie Sanders as well. A lot of the primary voters and party activists clearly like Bernie Sanders, and he's come second in 2 years of primaries, whereas most of the politicians within Congress who are Democrats I would say are more kind of right than him. And you could say that both the progressive left and Momentum have used primaries in the USA or selection meetings in the UK to target elected politicians and replace them with the likes of themselves. You could say that Momentum arguably have used some, I don't know what the word is, but people like Chukwuemeka and these other moderate Labour Party politicians felt they could no longer stay and left, didn't they? And then they were replaced by more kind of left-wing people in their seats. In terms of differences, you could say that Momentum in the UK have actually taken over a lot of the party kind of organs, if you like, whereas in the Democrat Party, I would say that the moderates are still very much in charge of the party, especially within Congress, and the fact that they tend to choose moderates as presidential candidates suggests that the moderates are still in charge. Another difference might be, you could argue that divisions in the Labour Party have been less over policy and more over personalities. This kind of, we don't like Corbyn, as opposed to his ideas, because you could say the party did unite, especially around the 2017 manifesto, if not so much about the 2019 one. Whereas the Democrat divisions, you might argue, are more about policy stances. And you might say there's another difference that the structure of the US system, and to some extent the culture, encourages divisions and caucuses in Congress. The fact they have these organised groupings in Congress where they have leadership meetings within their caucus where they decide policy stances and stuff is quite strong, and it might be down to their fragmented system, whereas in the UK it's not so strong. So there's like a loose coalition of people who are kind of on the Momentum side or the New Labour side. I don't think they really meet up in, I might be wrong, I don't think they meet up in like committee rooms in the House of Commons and decide their kind of strategy. So they were just some of my thoughts on this. So they're the stuff on factions. If you did miss this lesson, do make sure you complete the sheet. It's the one which I sent out about Republican Party. The last page on there has a Democrat one. So if you can get that done, that'd be great. I'll also send out to you on a PowerPoint, this is a PowerPoint, I'll send out the slide, Obama, and I've put on there a load of his things he did when he was president. And what I want you to do in your work booklet, there's a page which is called How Much Influence Does the Left and the Centre and Blue Dogs have within the Democrat Party. Just change that to how much influence do these groups have on Obama. And so what I want you to do, those ideas and policies which Obama did, which the progressive left would like, right down the progressive left column, those ones which the moderates, New Democrats would like, put in the middle one, and which ones the Blue Dogs would like in the right hand side one. You might find some of them will fit all three, some of them will just fit one or two of the groupings. And that should hopefully then give you a bit of an idea as to where the Obama administration was. And so, because this was an exam question about 3 years ago, and again, it'll give you that chance to look at some of this stuff and decide where the current Democrat Party is. Okay, any questions on that, send me an email. And I said I'll do my next update for the next bit of work, probably on Tuesday.